Good morning, everybody. I hope this video finds you well. Today, what I want to talk about is the differences in soul construction. The differences in soul construction. Now, this is a big old topic, and I've presented things in general terms. Consciousness, immediate higher energy, that's a characteristic of this reality universe, and then the highest form, which we may end up referring to godlike states, which is all part of you. But you see, people, these elements have now been exposed to different environments, and everybody becomes different. There's no unified set reality or a set template. No, template's a bad word. State. That we can say everybody's the same, because truly everybody is unique. If there's one thing that I'm getting out of this entire situation with Helping Domain, is that everybody is truly different. Imagine you're a husband and wife, or if you're whatever roles you have, you and your partner, okay? And you are both grew up in the small town together, or a small city together, in a suburb together, and you got married early on. And then, out of necessity, one ended up going to Europe, and the other one ended up staying in the small town. 5 years pass. The one in the small town develops in a certain way. Their attitudes, their accents, their behaviors stay that small town, but it's changed a little bit, while the one who's been away in Europe has also changed. And then they come back together, and there's all sorts of misunderstandings. Why do you do that? Oh, you have bad habits. There's all kinds of, they're no longer perfectly gelled. Now, the love between each of them is going to cause them to come back together, and they'll reattach to each other because of the love. But the longer they're away, the harder that reattachment's going to be. Instead of 5 years, let's make it 25 years. How easy will it be for somebody who spent 25 years going through Europe and Asia and Africa to go back to that small town, to their spouse who's just lived in this little community all that time? How easy will it be? And that's what you need to think about when it comes to reattaching with your higher selves. Now, the closest would be your Manted GP. They are the closest to you. But their experiences are quite different, and you have no knowledge of those experiences. You don't know about them. You don't know anything at all about them. So you have a hard time reconciling it and understanding it and dealing with it. You just don't know. You don't. So how are you going to deal with it? And if that's hard enough, imagine that with your super high elements, the God elements, that is within the heaven environments. It's even going to be more remote. So in order to reattach, you need to reattach in segments, elements. The process it doesn't like snap together. Now, maybe you can if you're only away for 5 years, or 6 months, or 5 months. But if you're away for a long period of time, you have to do it in stages. And it may not even be possible for some people. That's reality. Now, as the soul has been going through this churning process, each time your consciousness goes through it, a little bit of it siphons off, ends up in Manted GP, ends up in Manted Prime. I'm of the opinion that it's not necessarily a negative thing, because those siphoning off would be the transmission and reorganization of quanta that would happen normally if you were all unified. The lower energy segments, the consciousness has experiences, and that'll affect things that'll affect the higher energy consciousness. So it's a normal give and take, though you will lose it because you're separated. Your entire whole soul still retains it. Does that make sense? You're just moving from A to B. It's not throwing away and giving away like it's presented in the remote viewing of the Tunnel of Light video. I don't see that as actually occurring. Nevertheless, let's get back to our subject, which is the reattachment. The reattachment. That's what's important. How is that going to happen? Indeed, it has to be a scary, scary thing if you're unprepared for it. You're going to have to merge with this thing that looks like a creature from the movie Aliens. Ew. That has to be horrific. That has to be terrifying. And your swirling emotions and everything's going to have to be readjusted. So there's going to it has to occur in stages. It's my understanding that Domain has a process and procedure, and they've been working on this for some time. And it's a procedure. It is because of the lack of the proper procedures the reason that Matilda freaked out. And I'm here to tell you guys that there's a process and a procedure for reunification, going back home. And not to be afraid. You are not going to disappear. Your consciousness is not going to blink out of existence. So don't be fearful of that. You are going to be altered in another way, in a good way. So do not freak out about it at all. Okay? And this reordering of quanta, as I've mentioned in my other video, that they're going to be taking segments and compartmentalizing them, and then these compartments will then be going through a scrubbing. I don't know if I mentioned the scrubbing. Did I mention the scrubbing? I don't remember if I mentioned the scrubbing. There's a scrubbing. Think of marbles. And they've been played with a lot of kids with dirty hands. Okay? But the marbles are still there. You got to kind of scrub them, clean these marbles up before you put them in the compartments. So it's going to go through a scrubbing process. And then we put into operational segments. And it's not just you now, okay? We're talking from your point of view in terms of your consciousness, but remember, this also happens to the Manted GP and the Manted Prime. All of you together are all going to be in stages, disassembled and reassembled together. And no need to panic about it, but that's what's going to happen. And with that, keep in mind that the longer you have had the reincarnation experiences, the more scrubbing that has to occur on the quanta for it to be compartmentalized. The sooner the better, and get it over with, okay? If you think you can handle another couple hundred or a couple thousand reincarnations before you try again, go for it. But I'm not. That's just me. There's a couple of people who watch these videos of mine and don't think they're ready. If you don't think you're ready, then don't do anything. Okay? Hello? So, keep in mind that there's a relationship between the number of reincarnations you've had and the ease of reattachment, unification of the triad. The more reincarnations you've had, the harder it is going to be to gather together, and this will require more effort on the part of whoever unifies all of you together. Okay? You shouldn't be afraid of it, and I don't want you to be afraid of it at all. I hope everything goes well with you guys, and well, I believe you'll do fine. I hope this video was helpful to you, and I think we can talk a little bit more about the scrubbing process later on in the future if you're interested in that. With that, people, take care, because I believe in you.